tales where there are princesses waiting for their princes, you might have a different perspective than watching girls who have powers and are saving the world before bedtime. So I was really always inspired by that, and I do believe that nowadays we really need more figures like that to provide to young women, because I discussed a lot with women that were younger than me, and the fact that I highlighted all these things about masculinity and being afraid and ashamed of your clumsiness or your goofiness or things like that really talked a lot to them, and they were like, oh, thank God someone is thinking the same as me. And we really tend to hide all these problems, but they're quite important in my opinion, and yeah, so these were the
thank you. You know, what you're saying is right in my sweet spot, because the images that we project, whether they're through cartoons or TV shows or movies or, magazines or whatever, we are what we consume. And if we're consuming images of women that are stereotypical and that keep us bound and repressed and restricted, that's what we're going to metabolize for ourselves and imagine for ourselves. I'm reading a book by Thomas More right now that I love. I've read a number of times. It's called Care of the Soul. And one of the things he talks about that just really grabs me, he says being follows imagination. And so when you say that you saw these images that, were goofy images that allowed you to be comfortable in your own skin, that makes so much sense to me. I think we talked about the arts and leadership and how we can use the arts to really help transform those images into images that are women who are innovative and imaginative and creative and all of those things. So thank you again for sharing that bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you for listening and not judging as well, because people can say, oh, well, out of all these female leaders, these are the ones that she could come up with. But as you say, we were shaped by what we watch and see when we grow up. So I do believe it's important to address this issue.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm wondering if there's a project that you're working on right now or something that's coming up for you that you'd like to make sure that our listeners hear about?
Yeah, one of the projects I currently work on is the Women's Leadership Program. As I previously said, this program is really important and dear to my heart because I do believe in capacity building. I do believe in education and enhancing skills that many women need. And I know this because of the feedback I've received from lots of participants who took these workshops and who came to me and told me that it really changed their lives in a way, and it really opened up their eyes, and it made them more confident in themselves. And this acts as a multiplier effect because they can go back to their capitals in a way or to their countries and provide trainings on their own to other women. And I think that this program is really important, and people can reach out to me at any time at leadership@unitar.org to discuss, to even share experiences, to discuss possibilities of partnerships or contributions. We really want to be inclusive in the UN, try to really work on partnering with other organizations to provide more workshops and on a larger scale. So this is my professional project, which is also a personal project. But as a personal project, I've been trying as well to really tell people about the importance of women's leadership and gender equality. So I do a lot of communication with people. I try to really open conversations, and I would really like to invite the audience who listens to do that in their own lives and to really take a step back and see how their unconscious bias can affect as well their own actions, because they did for me, and it's only through communication and open-mindedness that I was able to really see how judgmental I was and how women can also be very discriminatory towards others. I mean, it's important to communicate. So these are the personal projects to really try to have an impact on a very small scale at first, and try not to really be too ambitious while being scared not to do anything. But it's just my main message is to also say that there's a saying that says, I wonder why sometimes no one did anything about it, or someone should have done something about it. And it's important to realize that you are that anybody, and you are that something, that someone, and you can do something about anything. And it doesn't have to be a major impact or something that is really big. It can be really a conversation or a communication with someone or a remark or taking a step back towards our own beliefs and our own judgments, to try to be more open. And anyone can make a change at any time. And, yeah, I do believe that this is really important. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you. What you're saying is so important. Many people that I meet in my leadership travels, I work with leaders of all ages in lots of different cultures, women, men, young people, etc. And a lot of times they go, I'm just one person. What can I do to change the world? And as you just said, Melanie, it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be written across the sky, right? It doesn't. It can
exactly.
be one small thing in your world that makes a difference in somebody else's world. And that really is, I think, the heart of this work, of leadership work. There's some things that are very large in scale, and there's some things that are fairly small, that are within our reach, within our grasp. So thank you for making that distinction for our listeners.
Yeah. And even given your example, having a radio show to discuss all these things, and it's really inspiring in a way, because it's definitely through listening to people and through exchanging ideas that we can make a change and get even inspired to do new things as well. So thank you as well for doing this yourself and for giving me the opportunity to speak up as well.
You are so welcome. And to your point, there's so many people in countries that don't have the kind of communications infrastructure that we enjoy in various parts of Europe, where you are, and in the United States, and in other well-funded and so-called developed countries.
Definitely.
But everybody seems to have a cell phone, and so
yes.
if you have a cell phone, you can have access to a show like this. And one of my secret goals, just so you know, is to have this kind of conversation so that people all over the world can tune in and listen, because that's how we grow. Without access to this kind of information, you're just kind of stuck in your own little world, and you may not know what's happening out there and what's possible for you. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
So
and
again, I want to thank
inspiring.
you for the work that you're doing, for the passion that you have, for bringing your background into play, and being inspired by those women in your life who made a difference for you when you were younger, and that you're now able to radiate that and do the same for other women. Thank you so much, Melanie.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
You're so welcome. I wish you a good rest of it's evening there now for you, and it's morning for me.
Yes.
So good evening, and I can't wait to introduce you to my listeners.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you also for the audience who are listening as well.
All right. Thank you. Fantastic. Wonderful nuggets. Thanks again to Melanie Cremona for being my guest today. If you'd like to learn more about Melanie's work, or, as she mentioned during today's conversation, if you'd like to donate to Unitar's programming to support women leaders, you can reach out to Melanie via this email address, and that's leadership@unitar.org. leadership@unitar.org. And remember, Unitar is UNITAR.org. So if you want to reach out to Melanie, she'd be very happy to hear from you. Now, if you missed any part of this week's broadcast about women's leadership, developing your own leadership identity, you can listen to the podcast right here on Talk Network Radio. Now, you can also find me on iTunes, SoundCloud, Alexa, and many, many other places. Now, before I close today's show, I just want to give a shout-out to all the women all around the world, and to my mom, who just celebrated her birthday. Yay! Love you, Mom! when Melanie mentioned her mom as one of the women leaders who influenced her, I was thinking the very same thing, as I know many of you were too. Because you know what? I asked this question a lot of people all over the world. I was just presenting a keynote a few days ago, and this was one of the questions I asked the folks in the audience. Who inspired you when you were a young girl or boy? Who did you look up to? Who did you admire? And why? And you know what? No matter where I am in the world, the response to that question is always the same. Who inspired you? Who influenced you? This is what I hear. Well, my mom, or my dad, or my grandpa, or my grandma, right? So, it's amazing how much impact we have as leaders in our own home. Now, most parents don't think about themselves as leaders, right? They're just kind of scratching their head figuring out this parenting things. But we are. That's what we are. We're leaders for our children. And we have so much influence and impact in our own home with our own children. So moms and dads out there, even when it seems like your daughter or son isn't paying attention, let me tell you something. They are. They're listening, okay? They're listening, and they're soaking it all in. And more than anything else, they are watching you. Let me be really clear. They are scoping you out. They are observing every single thing you do, every little nuance, right? More importantly, they're watching you because they want to see if what you say and what you do line up, right? Our actions really do speak much louder than our words. A good friend of mine, who's a former CEO, she says this, whether you're a parent or whether you're in the boardroom, as a leader, in any context, your walk has got to talk louder than your talk talks. That's great, isn't it? Let me repeat that. She says, your walk has got to talk louder than your talk talks. Now, why is that? Because that's how we build the bridge called trust, right? That's how we strengthen our bond with those we love. That's how we deepen our relationships, one step at a time, inch by inch, mile by mile, and smile by smile, at home, at work, and in any area of our lives. Every single day, 365, 24/7. So, ask yourself, how is your walk lining up with your talk? You know what? It's never too late to get your walk and your talk lined up, to get your act together, so to speak, so you can take it on the road and make a difference in someone's life, the difference that only you can make. Remember this, how you live is how you lead. How you live is how you lead. Now, if you happen to miss any part of this week's broadcast, or if you missed last week's show, you can listen to a podcast of the show at your convenience. You can even listen to it on the go. How about that? You can check us out at www.talknetworkradio.com/legacyliving.html. That's www.talknetworkradio.com, all smushed together, no hyphens, /legacyliving, LEGACYLIVING.html. Before I close today, I want to thank each of you for tuning in to today's show and for allowing me to share just a bit about my journey with what legacy living is all about. Not just living and learning, but living and learning and serving so that you make a difference in your own life and in the lives of others. It's about being on purpose every single day, 365, 24/7. Legacy living is one of the many ways to make your life count. Once again, thank you for joining me for today's show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess, and this has been Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. Please join me again next week right here on Talk Network Radio for another show of Legacy Living. Make your life count. We're here again right here. Talk Network Radio. Don't miss it. And